Greetings, dear viewer. I am AC. You may be wondering what I'm doing down here in this cold, dismal place. Well, it all started a few months ago when I discovered a movie so terrible, a sequel so pointless, so unnecessary, so disrespectful. When I watched it, I became so enraged that my face fucking exploded. The resulting explosion left me so scarred and deformed that I've had to wear this mask. And my parents, they were so horrified that they locked me down here in the basement. It's been challenging. The only source of light I have is this conveniently placed chandelier. I've had to resort to stealing food from upstairs to survive. It's been working out pretty well so far. What's that, you ask? Why, that is the movie which has done this to me. I put a mask over it in order to shield the world from its horror. What? You wish to see what movie could have possibly done this to me? No. You must never ask me that. You are in no danger so long as you don't see the movie. Very well. If you insist. You wanted to see it? Now, see it! Feast your eyes and let your soul upon its cursed awfulness! Why had you wanted to see it? Oh, mad fool who wanted to see it! When even my own mother would never see this movie!
Is that true?
Well, now you can never leave. Yes, now you must stay here and help me save the Phantom of the Opera. But first, a little background.
The Phantom of the Opera is a mystery novel written by French author Gaston Leroux. Published in March 1910, the book has since gained dozens of adaptations, most of which have really nothing to do with it.
I'm not a phantom. I'm a rat.
I'm so sorry. I love animals.
But one of the more faithful adaptations, and easily the most famous, is Andrew Lloyd Webber's musical released in 1986, which I'm sure you're all aware of. But in case you live in the fucking catacombs under the Paris Opera House, yet somehow have had no exposure to any culture, let's quickly run through the plot of the original musical. It tells the story of Christine Daae, a young opera singer who is taught how to sing in secret by the Phantom of the Opera, who is actually a disfigured man named Eric, who uses tricks and illusions to make himself seem like a supernatural being. Eric blackmails and extorts the owners of the opera to get Christine the lead role. When they refuse, he poisons the prima donna, causing her to lose her voice in the middle of a performance. Oh yeah, and kills a man. I probably should have led with that. After discovering that her angel is a psycho, Christine confides in her childhood friend Raoul, causing the two to fall in love. Christine's betrayal of her creepy stalker 4 times her age causes Eric to commit domestic terrorism. Then he disappears for about a year before crashing the masquerade ball and demanding that the opera perform his latest fanfiction, Don Juan Triumphant. Correctly assuming that he will show up if Christine plays the lead role, Raoul and the managers set up a sting operation to capture Eric. But it all goes wrong when Eric kills the male lead and kidnaps Christine right off the stage. With the help of the ballet teacher, Madame Giry, Raoul makes his way into Eric's lair to rescue Christine, but immediately gets captured. Then, Eric offers Christine a choice. Either she marries him, or Raoul dies. Which is somehow a much better set of choices than what she gets in the book. Ultimately, she chooses to save Raoul, kissing Eric on the lips. Having never been kissed before, Eric's heart grows 3 sizes, and he lets Christine leave with Raoul before pulling one final illusion, vanishing from the stage, leaving only his mask behind.
Now, doesn't that sound like a perfect ending? Christine and Raoul get to live happily ever after, the Phantom's reign of terror over the opera house is over, and the audience is left to wonder if he died in his lair at the end, or if he managed to pull off one last illusion and sneak away. Beautiful, isn't it? No sequel necessary, right? Well, apparently, someone didn't agree.
As early as 1990, Weber became dead set on ruining his greatest work, even unofficially commissioning Frederick Forsyth to write The Phantom of Manhattan in 1999 so Weber could have a book to base his sequel on. But the book was somehow way worse, so that didn't really work out. And why was Weber so dead set on breaking what wasn't broken? Other than the obvious answer of,
God, I love money so much.
it was because many people wanted Christine to go with Eric instead of Raoul, even though it goes against literally everything the story's about, as well as goes against common fucking sense. As much as I want to say that this is all Gerard Butler's fault for making Eric sexy, the slow, painful romanticizing of Eric had apparently started long before the movie was released. I guess this group of people eventually became the Twilight audience. Roughly 20 years after Weber initially had the idea, Love Never Dies premiered in London in 2010, and it was panned. So much so that the show closed for 4 days for rewrites.
Imagine that. Imagine working on a story for 20 years, and when it's finally done, you immediately have to go back to the writing room to fix it. Also, according to Wikipedia, the original premiere of the show got delayed because Andrew Lloyd Webber's cat accidentally deleted all the music for the show. Try to remember that next time someone tries to tell you that cats are jerks. They almost saved us from this atrocity.
After London didn't work out, they tried one more time to make this work in Australia. With a few more rewrites and a completely new team behind it, this time the show got slightly better reviews, but still underperformed and never made it to Broadway. And it was this Australian production that was recorded and released on DVD and Blu-ray. Thank God this brilliant production was saved from being lost to time. We have no recording of the original cast for Phantom, the cast that the show was written for, but we have Love Never Dies on Blu-ray. The only official recording of Phantom we have is a heavily compromised show that is missing some of the most famous set pieces due to the venue being too small, but we have Love Never Dies on Blu-ray. Les Miserables, Wicked, Hunchback, none of them get official Blu-rays, but we have Love Never Dies on Blu-ray.
And that, dear viewer, is how Andrew Lloyd Webber killed the Phantom of the Opera. But I did not come here to talk about the history of Love Never Dies, but to tell you that I am going to die of disappointment. I am dying of disappointment. Also of several infections and malnourishment, and also, some syphilis, but that's another story altogether. But mostly of disappointment. That is how it is, dear viewer. Dying of disappointment that this story, which I adore so, is chained to a sequel as awful as this. That is how it is, dear viewer. And that is what you can help me with. With the remaining time that I have left, I have been... fuck! Ignore that. Anyway, with the remaining time that I have left, I have been working on a new sequel to Phantom of the Opera. The sequel that this story deserves. But I struggle for inspiration. Well, perhaps the way to learn how to make a sequel is to understand how not to make a sequel. Well, what do you say, dear viewer? Let us frighten away the ghost of so many years ago with a little analysis. Gentlemen!
Love Never Dies actually has a really strong start.
What?
It begins with Eric playing the organ in front of a giant painting of Christine, singing about how he must hear her sing once more. This is a great song to start the show off with, and it would fit in perfectly alongside music from the original. I also think Eric wanting to hear his muse sing one last time is a really good way to bring Christine back into the story, even at the expense of the perfect happily ever after we had before.
Huh. You know, maybe this won't be so bad.
Then we are introduced to the main setting of Coney Island, with what I will admit are fantastic effects. When watched over playback like this, it's a lot harder to appreciate, but I can imagine seeing this live was quite the experience. Then we get reintroduced to Meg Giry, who is now the Ooh La La girl on the island, and she brings us our next song, Only for Him, which is fine, albeit completely forgettable.
One thing to note is that this song informs us that Eric now goes by the name Mr. Y, obviously supposed to be Mr. E. But that begs the question, why didn't they just use Mr. E? It sounds better and also makes more sense because, you know, his name is Eric.
After the performance, Meg asks the returning Madame Giry if Mr. Y had seen the show. Madame Giry promptly ignores Meg's questions and reveals that Christine Daae is coming to town to perform at the grand opening of the New York Opera House. Then she sings about how the Girys smuggled Eric out of France after the ending of the original. Her story is very vague and doesn't really make any sense, since it never really seemed like the Girys were exactly rolling in cash, but whatever.
And who stayed with him, helped him and advised him? She betrayed him.
Yeah, so minor correction here. In the original, Madame Giry was definitely not an advisor to Eric. She was more of a messenger than anything else. The movie made her more of an active helper with the Devil's Child scene and stuff, but that never happened in the musical. Also, while Christine getting engaged to Raoul I guess could be seen as betrayal, and Eric certainly thought so, she's forgetting that at the end of the show, she actually betrayed Eric when she helped Raoul enter his secret lair, directly foiling his plan to kidnap Christine and stuff. So she's a massive hypocrite. But you know what? Let's hear her out. Let's see what else she has to say first.
She chose Raoul, chose to make a new start, chose beauty and youth over genius and art.
Yeah, so that's just not true. Christine chose beauty and youth over being held prisoner by a psychopath. Also, she technically did pick Eric, and she was willing to start a new life with him, but Eric decided to let her leave with Raoul instead. So really, all of that was total bullshit.
Moving on, in the next scene, we are finally reintroduced to our leading lady and her dashing hero, Christine Daae and Raoul de Chagny, as well as their young son, Gustave, who is a new character. And now we reach the first real slap in the face of the show. For our dear Raoul, Christine's dashing white knight in the original, has been reduced to a neglectful father and a drunk who lost all of his family's money gambling. Wow. Just wow. Andrew Lloyd Webber, a man who has won 7 Tonys, 3 Grammys, 6 Olivers, a Golden Globe, an Oscar, and an International Emmy, resorted to using every shitty fanfiction writer's favorite trope of turning the canon love interest into a douchebag so he can force his fanship into existence. Good God.
Look, Raoul in the original was not a very in-depth character. He's your standard Disney prince. And you know what? He's so boring that I'm pretty sure that's one of the biggest reasons why anyone wanted Christine to pick Eric at all. But this is still unacceptable.
Many stories have used the generic Disney prince turned out to be a dick trope before, but they were their own separate stories. They weren't trying to position themselves as the direct sequel to the original Disney movies. The same goes here. The Raoul who ventured into the depths of the opera just to save Christine, who was willing to die so she could be free, is not anything like this guy. Not only is this an insult to the original musical, this is an insult to the original book, where Raoul was the main character. Also, before you fucking make a Last Jedi comment, that was completely different, as the time gap was way larger and we had more concrete events that caused Luke to change as a person. So shut the fuck up and go jerk off into your copy of Heir to the Empire, you pathetic sack of shit. Once they get to their penthouse, Raoul complains about how much America sucks, while actively refusing to play with Gustave and his weird blank facial expressions. Side note, I think it's really cool that the toy Gustave has is a more advanced version of the monkey music box from the original, but it was really a missed opportunity that they don't play the Masquerade music to go alongside it. Raoul gets lured to a bar by a fake letter from Hammerstein, and Gustave is put to bed with a song by Christine about how definitely healthy and not toxic this family is.
Love is not always beautiful, so look with your heart and not with your eyes.
Once Gustave is asleep and Christine is all alone in the room, the reunion we've all been waiting for can at last commence.
Fucking perfect.
This scene is actually really cool, and I especially love how they make you think they're going to use the main theme from the original, but it turns out to actually be the new theme for Love Never Dies.
Christine!
You know, aside from Raoul, this show hasn't actually been all that bad so far. It's had a decent amount of really good moments, and the spectacle is truly stunning. Maybe this won't be so bad after all. You know, it's not like they're going to introduce a concept that is so stupid that it will single-handedly throw the plot so far off course that there will literally be no hope of recovery, right? Right? Damn you, Andrew Lloyd Webber!
Oh boy! Where do I start? So, get this. Remember that heartbreaking goodbye at the end of the original? How Christine was willing to sacrifice her own freedom to save Raoul? But then, in response to being treated with compassion for the first time in his life, Eric decides to let Christine and Raoul leave together, and with tears in his eyes, he tells Christine that he loves her, and as a final goodbye, she returns his ring before leaving with Raoul, the couple promising to share one love, one lifetime together as they leave the stage. Remember that? Well, apparently, right after that, like a couple months minimum, the night before she's supposed to marry Raoul, she meets up with Eric, and they have sex. Lots of sex. So much sex. Then, the next morning, she was ready to ditch her fiancé and go with Eric, but he actually ditched her, so she just marries Raoul instead.
This is a point of no return.
Well, now that we've lost any hope of this show being decent, let's pick this apart piece by piece. First off, before the ending of the original, Eric had clearly never touched a woman in his life. Literally, his own mother would never kiss him, and his first love literally killed herself after she saw his face. So, Eric is not exactly rolling in bitches. I mean, look at him. He doesn't even know what to do with himself when Christine kisses him. So I seriously doubt he would be as good at sex as the song suggests. And it suggests.
And I caught you,
I kissed you,
and I took you,
I begged you
with a need too urgent to deny. Again and then again.
He seems more like the kind of guy who would nut 2 seconds in. Unless he was practicing on that mannequin from the original. Actually, I don't want to think about this anymore. Second, needless to say, it is incredibly out of character for Christine to cheat on Raoul, especially on the night before her wedding. Third, remember how in the original Christine said,
This haunted face holds no horror for
Well, actually, no! Turns out it was all the face, because apparently if you turn off the lights, she's all over him. Fourth, the only defense that you can give to Raoul's characterization in this show is that over the last 10 years and losing all of their money, he turned into this asshole. But apparently, within weeks of the original's ending, Christine was already so sick of him that she's totally willing to ditch him for the guy who tried to murder him. Huh, that makes Christine seem like a total whore, doesn't it? Interesting choice, Weber. God, this is fucking awful! It's just baffling! How did any professional write something this stupid? I have never seen a sequel take this many idiotic directions with the characters. Did Weber even watch his own show before writing this? I'd continue comparing it to shitty fanfiction, but I honestly think that's insulting to fanfiction writers. So, Eric wants Christine to perform his work one more time, but when she refuses, he threatens to kill Gustave.
Oh yeah! He's a fucking serial killer! I almost forgot!
Also, is it just me or does he sound a lot like Jack Skeleton?
We're in Phantasma, little Vicomte, on Coney Island.
Merry Christmas! And what is your name?
So, in the next song, Dear Old Friend, Christine's family arrives at Coney Island and reunites with the Giris. But the happy reunion ends when Raoul figures out that Mr. Y is actually Eric, and Meg finds out that Christine is stealing her spot as the headliner. Overall, it's another whatever song that I have no real strong feelings about. After the reunion, Raoul storms off to get drunk, and Christine realizes that Gustave has vanished and goes to look for him. Turns out, Gustave was lured away by Eric's henchmen and taken directly to his lair. Eric quickly grows attached to Gustave after hearing his voice and ability to play the piano. Then, Eric learns Gustave's age, leading to one of the most iconic parts of the show.
10 years old.
Eric is so excited that Gustave is only 10 years old that he quickly brings him down into his spooky, dark basement, where he promises to show the young boy a dark, twisted world beyond what is accepted in society. Eric shows the child various exotic, wild, dare I say, sinful things that stretch the boy's imagination, getting him very excited. All while Eric watches the boy with hunger in his eyes. As the song builds, Eric promises to show Gustave the beauty underneath. Gustave responds with a primal shout of yes! Yes! Culminating in Eric exposing himself to the boy at the end of the song.
No, I will not rephrase. It's exactly as creepy as it sounds.
It's a shame because it's one of the better songs in the show, and the set design is very creative, even if I have no idea what the hell any of this is. But the lyrics are just so uncomfortable.
Don't you feel amazing things? Things you know you can't confess.
This feels like it belongs in Rocky Horror Picture Show, not a sequel to Phantom of the Opera. I feel like I'm watching NAMBLA propaganda right now.
And being graced with a taste of the beauty underneath.
Also, what the hell is he doing? Does he think it looks cool? It doesn't. It looks stupid. After Gustave, understandably, runs away in horror, Eric confronts Christine, who reveals that Gustave is actually Eric's son, having been conceived that night beneath the moonless sky. I could bitch and moan about how fucking terrible of a story decision that was, but I would just be repeating everything I already said a couple minutes ago, so let's just move on. Eric declares that he will leave all of Coney Island, I guess, to his son, much to the dismay of Madame Giry, who was listening the entire time. You get it? It's like the Apollo's liar scene in the original, except stupid and lame. Madame Giry complains about how the Giris have worked so hard over the last 10 years, only for all of Coney Island, I guess, to go to Gustave, and how she wishes that bastard child was never born. So do I. Oh boy, I sure can't wait for that plot point to go anywhere in Act 2.
Don't worry, dear viewer. It'll be over soon. We're halfway there now, and...
Let me pass! Let me pass! I am the rat catcher! You must let me pass!
fucking weird.
Act 2 begins with Raoul in a bar singing about how much of a pathetic loser he is, and that Christine is better off without him. I'd keep complaining about this, but I've grown numb to the pain. So then Eric shows up and makes a bet with Raoul. If Raoul can get Christine to walk out on the performance, Eric will pay off all of their debts and disappear forever. But if she sings, then Raoul has to leave Christine to him. And of course, Raoul takes this bet. Apparently, after 10 long years, Eric has still not learned shit about ethical ways to win over a girl. Then we get the next musical number, Bathing Beauty, a striptease number performed by Meg.
Bathing beauty on the beach. Checks!
Man, Eric really fell off. He went from Music of the Night and Point of No Return to this? What the hell happened? Actually, in hindsight, Eric was always this perverted. He did write an entire opera just to do a love scene with Christine, so this makes a lot of sense. After the show, Meg excitedly rushes backstage to tell Madame Giry about how great the performance was and ask what Eric thought of it, only to have her spirit crushed by the revelation that Eric wasn't even there. Madame Giry then goes on about how they've both been replaced by Christine and basically gives Meg a nervous breakdown. Then we see Christine rehearsing before taking some time to comfort Gustave and talk about all the things they're going to do together after the performance.
Well, she's gonna die.
She gets interrupted by Raoul, who finally got his shit together in order to convince her to ditch the show. However, right as she's about to leave, Eric enters through the mirror to deliver a quick reprise of the only good song in the show. But then something interesting happens.
But every hope and every prayer rests on you now.
No, don't play the music from your good show, you'll ruin it!
Actually, despite all my joking, this scene actually made me feel emotion. I guess piggybacking off of 3 much better scenes will do that to you, but I think this is alright. However, there is one interesting thing to point out here. When Christine sings the lyrics to Twisted Every Way from the original, there are a few changes.
He kills without a thought. He murders without scorn. I know I can't refuse, and yet I wish I could. Oh God, if I agree, what horrors wait for me? I know I can't refuse, and yet I wish I could. Oh God.
I don't even need to say anything else. At this point, I'm surprised Weber hasn't gone back and redacted scenes in the original where Eric does evil. So Christine goes on stage and performs the title track, Love Never Dies. Clearly, this is meant to be the biggest, most emotional moment in the show, where Christine uses her beautiful instrument once again, and has the entire audience in awe of her angelic voice. It's easily the most famous song of the show, and as far as I know, one of the better liked as well.
It's okay, I guess, but it doesn't really work.
The song doesn't really soar as high as it should, because she spends half the song singing softly and meekly as she's torn between Soy Jack Raoul or Chad Eric. But hilariously, after Raoul dramatically leaves in the middle of the performance, Christine finally gets her act together. But even after that, this just isn't a very impressive song. You'd think that Eric, having obsessed over this woman's voice for a decade, would do something more interesting with it. You know, like this. That and the lyrics themselves are generic and downright corny. I get no emotion out of this, or at least not any powerful ones. It's just a generic love song. After the show, Christine and Eric share a deeply passionate kiss that feels empty and hollow in comparison to the first one. The romantic moment ends when Christine discovers a letter from Raoul saying that he's gone out to buy some milk and will be back in an hour. Then, gasp! Oh no! Gustave is missing again! Was it Madame Giry, who they were setting up as some sort of antagonist in the second act? No? Double gasp! It was actually Meg? What? Having grown tired of Eric ignoring her despite all her and her mother had done for him, up to and including Meg prostituting herself to keep this operation afloat, she's going to do a murder-suicide. Despite it not being set up all that well, I think Meg's character arc is definitely the most well-written and interesting part of this whole show. It's really a shame that it is stuck being a part of this show. Eric proves himself to be the worst hostage negotiator ever when he tells the woman with a gun that
We can't all be like Christine.
Christine?
In response, Meg shoots Christine, and we're treated to a death scene so over the top and cliche that it's honestly hilarious. The show ends with Gustav touching Eric's beauty underneath, while his father stands there awkwardly watching. And on that pathetic note, we are done. Love Never Dies may very well be the worst sequel ever made. I know that's a strong statement to make, but no other sequel makes me this angry. It ruins the perfect ending of the original, completely disregards the original by altering characters beyond recognition, and flat out ignoring events that contradict the story Weber wanted to tell. You can't have Raoul be the supportive boyfriend who's willing to die to save Christine, because if he's a good husband, then he wouldn't support Christine leaving him. You can't acknowledge that Eric is a murderer and a terrorist, because then he wouldn't be an appealing love interest. You can't acknowledge that Madame Giry turned on Eric at the end of the original, because then she wouldn't be a fake-out villain for your shitty story. No! This is so basic that you shouldn't even have to explain that when working in an established universe, you can't change the characters to fit the story you want to tell, you change the story to fit the characters. This show caters to people who completely misunderstood the original. It's like if they made Breaking Bad 2 for the people who wish Walt didn't die at the end, where Walter White is a badass alpha male who never does anything evil like poisoning children, where Skylar is an evil manipulative bitch so Walt dumps her for Jesse, who gets tragically killed by fucking Huel at the end after being egged on by a jealous Saul who wishes Walt would fuck him. While the music is mostly fine, and the spectacle is incredible enough that if I saw this live, I could be swayed to even give this a middle-of-the-road review. It's a shame that all of this talent is being wasted on a project that was dead on arrival. This isn't a sequel. This is Andrew Lloyd Webber writing fanfiction about his ex taking him back, and that's just gross.
We watched it, and we did not die. Oh, dear viewer, you have no idea how good it feels to watch such an awful movie and to not die. We watched the entire thing, and you did not run away. You stayed with me, wept with me, over me. We watched it together. Oh, I have tasted all the happiness the world can offer.
Look, man, I don't know what you're talking about. Please let me go. I have a family.
It's okay, dear viewer. But our work is not done. While we were watching the movie, I wrote out 3 scripts for better sequels to Phantom of the Opera. They are as follows. The first, Project Scorpion. The second, Project Grasshopper. And the third is... oh shit, there was only 2 choices in the book. The third one is... the third one! Let us go through all 3 of them and decide which one is the best.
First, Project Scorpion. Fuck it, just adapt Phantom by Susan Kay. For those who aren't aware, Phantom, released in 1990, is a prequel to the original novel, detailing Eric's origin before he came to haunt the Opera House. Doing this allows you to expand on the story while not ruining the perfect ending of the original. Now, Project Grasshopper is a bit more complex, using a few of the better ideas from Love Never Dies, while adding stuff from the book that got cut from the original musical. This was originally going to be a lot more detailed and include more characters, but it was a bit too long, so I had to cut it down to the most basic plot description. But if you want to hear my more advanced version of this story, maybe I'll make that a separate video, or just upload a Google Doc to, like, the description or something, I don't know. 10 years after the original, Eric has moved to New York and built Coney Island just like Love Never Dies. In his increasing old age, Eric has come down with an unnamed illness that will soon take his life and is also driving him completely insane. Well, more insane. Before he kicks the bucket, he wants to hear Christine sing once more, so he lures the family to New York. But unlike Love Never Dies, there is no Beneath the Moonless Sky. Christine just flat out refuses, so Eric kidnaps Gustave, forcing Christine and Raoul to comply with his demands. While Christine rehearses for the big performance, Raoul teams up with the Persian to track down Gustave. The two ultimately get themselves trapped in the maze of mirrors from the book, except now it's an actual theme park attraction. Eric once again has a change of heart and lets everyone go. As one last act of kindness, Christine performs Eric's work to critical acclaim. The show concludes with a melodramatic death scene for Eric similar to the original ending of the 1925 silent movie.
Not bad. It does expand on the world of the original without actively trying to destroy it, and it adds in characters and ideas from the book. But it's also far from perfect. The plot is overstuffed with ideas and characters, and Christine doesn't really get much to do outside of... And she gets kind of sidelined for Raoul and the Persian. Also, I think it might be a little too fan service-y, but, you know, it's still a vast improvement over that thing. Let's check out the next option.
Last, the third one.
It's empty. Huh. I guess the best sequel to Phantom of the Opera is no sequel.
Phantom of the Opera is an open and shut story. There was never any need for a continuation. Trying to make one is like trying to write a sequel to Romeo and Juliet. It's a bad idea from the start. So no matter how hard you work on it, it will never work, because the core concept is unnecessary and stupid. On its own, Love Never Dies is a perfectly mid-musical, but as a sequel to one of the most popular musicals of all time, it's less than worthless. It simply has no right to exist.
Well, there you have it, dear viewer. Now make your choice. The scorpion? Or the grasshopper? Or the third one?
I don't know. The third one. I picked the third one.
So then you agree. The best sequel is no sequel. Well, that can be arranged. Here, hold on to this for me, will you?
Wait, what are you doing? Hey man, you guys mean so much to me. You've done like so much for me. You guys have like made me feel better about myself, and has made me want to be better. Like you guys just inspire me to make better stuff. Like without you guys.